The controversy over the government-instituted payment platform IPPIS may have ended as universities and other tertiary institutions have now been authorized to discontinue the use of the integrated payroll and personnel information system. This decision was part of the resolutions made during Wednesday's Federal Executive Council meeting. State House correspondent Adesua Omoran reports.
President Bola Tinubu and his cabinet convened once again for a Federal Executive Council meeting addressing crucial national matters. This session, coming 2 weeks since the last, began with the swearing-in of the chairman and members of the Federal Civil Service Commission, along with the chairman of the Anti-Graft Agency, ICPC. Following discussions, it was revealed that the Council approved the removal of universities and other tertiary institutions from the controversial Integrated Payroll and Personal Information System, otherwise known as the IPPIS.
You recall that the university authorities and ASU have been clamoring for the exemption of the universities and other tertiary institutions from this system. Today, Council has graciously approved that. What that means is that going forward, the universities, like the Honorable Minister of Education has said, and other tertiary institutions, the polytechnics and colleges of education, will be taken off the IPPIS system, the Integrated Personnel and Payroll Information System. What that means in simple language is that the university administration, the university authorities, and other tertiary institutions will now be paying their own personnel from their own end instead of relying on the IPPIS that has been the case.
The Minister of Education underscores the rationale behind this decision.
The President and the Council is just concerned about efficiency of management of the universities. And so it has nothing to do with integrity or options of platforms. Simply, the President cannot understand why Vice Chancellors should be leaving their duty post and be running to Abuja to get staff enlisted on IPPIS when they get recruited.
In 2020, the Academic Staff Union of Universities embarked on an 8-month strike due to disputes with the federal government over the payment platform, citing corruption allegations with the system. Subsequently, university lecturers opted for the University Transparency Account System, UTAS. The IPPIS, introduced in October 2006, was part of the federal government's reform initiatives to store personnel records effectively and promote transparency and accountability. It is left to be seen how those affected by this decision respond to it. In other developments, the Council approved 2 memos for the Ministry of Aviation. This included a technical support services contract to maintain the Murtala Mohammed International Airport in Lagos over the next 5 years, costing 4.1 billion naira.
We have said that they should maintain their chillers, the air handling units, the passenger boarding bridge, the escalators at the concourse, the remote boarding lifts that were specifically made for the physically challenged, and all those facilities they put there.
There is also the issue of other economic policies that were discussed at Council today. Of note is the issue of waiver, in addition to so many other decisions taken. You recall that Customs has reported that in 2023 alone, they've lost over 1.3 trillion naira to waivers. Council has decided to look at those waivers and review them.
Furthermore, the Council approved an additional sum of 2.2 billion naira for navigation equipment and other necessities at the Port Harcourt Airport. Adesua Omoran, Arise News.
All right, finally, a decision has been made on IPPIS, and it seems like the universities, ASU in this case, has come out triumphant.
Yes, I mean, they've been fighting this for quite a while, IPPIS, and It's culture around the conversation of the universities having a full level of autonomy, as regards payments and as regards how the university system works and how they pay their lecturers. And this has been one of the demands of ASU. And I also think recently, the case as regards a certain percentage of the revenue of universities, set aside, being taken out of that lump sum by the Ministry of Finance, I think that has also been sorted out. So I think this is also in line with the president saying that he will try as much as possible to ensure that we have no strikes in this dispensation. This has really, really, been a very, very sticky issue between ASU and the federal government. And to a large extent, I'm happy that this has been resolved, because part of the arguments the lecturers will always make is also about the fact that, yes, you have a lot of people that are visiting universities and things like that, and proper remuneration has to be made. The fact that the IPPIS system is flawed is giving them a lot of challenges and all of that. So that's good. But another sticky point that they will have to look at is ASU's discontent about the student loan that is to start in January. In fact, we've heard the position of ASU as regards this, saying that it's just to be able to enrich the private universities. So what would be the best method forward? Is it a student loan or using that money, for the university system, doing more, and also opening up the funding model, probably to add some level of endowment model to the funding and ensure that we have proper university funding? And also fixing the problems we have in the university system, because yes, apart from IPPIS and other things, it's not just about that. The quality of lecturers is fast dwindling. There are some universities that don't even have full complements of professors, and people in the academic space lecturing in those universities. Also, the welfare of the students, the teacher-student ratio, the halls, of residence, and generally, the cost of running the university. I think it was somebody from Unilag that was speaking recently, talking about the power cost in a month of running those schools. So we need to be able to have a holistic fundament. And I totally understand the argument of the federal government that yes, they don't have what it takes to effectively run those universities fully. I get it. How can we harmonize the funding model? And what has been done to be able to ensure that this university has some level of sustainability and funding? There's a particular university, I will not mention the name because it was privileged information, that it was said that could have reached a full autonomy status recently, but some people in the last administration did not make it happen because they had partnered with many foreign organizations. They had set up schemes as regards agriculture and things like that, and other viable funding model schemes. So things like that, you'll wonder, why is it that we keep holding ourselves back? Because the grand conversation is funding and making them effective. But the federal government has passed this into law. Probably there's no going back on it. We'll even have to see the full gamut of how this student loan works. Some will rather argue that can't the money be plowed into the educational system? Some will also argue on the contrary that how much is this money? 5 billion? That's a far cry. What will it do in the educational system? So these are some of the other issues, up for determination. Admits there were other things that were talked about here. The Minister of Aviation talked about, the procurement in his ministry and things like that. And I'm also sure that's also coming on the heels of some head of parastatals in the aviation sector that were recently relieved of their job. And the EFCC was also said to investigate them. I would say kudos to the president on that, because we have seen a lot of lapses in the aviation sector. And we would like to know what really transpired as regards that sector. And generally, it was another FEC, many things out there that have been talked about for a while.
Okay, this is the story. ASU went on strike for about 7.5 months, 8 months, as popularly known. And one of the reasons they went on strike was because of the decision of the Buhari administration to place them under IPPIS, like regular civil servants. Now, IPPIS, when it was introduced, incidentally by the Jonathan administration, was to address the issue of ghosts on the payroll, to ensure greater transparency and efficiency in the disbursement of salaries for civil servants. And it seemed to have worked. But the inclusion of university teachers and teachers at the tertiary level, polytechnics, and colleges of education became one of the bases for those industrial actions that lasted almost 8 months. What was the position of ASU? I recall Biodun Ogunyemi, my old colleague at Olabisi Onabanjo University, was ASU president at the time. And he was quite firm in saying that IPPIS will treat university teachers as civil servants, and that they are not civil servants. They fall into a special category because of the nature of their work. And that IPPIS will put universities in a situation whereby every recruitment to get a staff onto the payroll, the universities will have to go, the tertiary institutions will have to go to the Ministry of Education to get these persons enrolled. And that by the nature of university teachers, there are other issues, in terms of other engagements, in terms of part-time teaching, in terms of engagement with other universities, which come within the territory of university teaching, and that it will constrain academic freedom. That was a major issue at the time. Now, that Ogunyemi administration of ASU then proposed to the federal government of Nigeria, to the Buhari administration, what they call UTAS. And the UTAS, we were told, was going to be tested, was this and that. Both ASU and government did not arrive at any resolution with regard to UTAS, which was the alternative that was offered by ASU, and which was one of the reasons why the strike went on for so long and the tertiary system was shut down. Now, what we have seen now is clearly the Tinubu administration moving away from the policy of the Buhari administration. Okay, it's policy reversal, clearly. And in any case, the question to ask is, how many more policies of the Buhari administration will be reversed going forward? What we know is that ASU is very happy with this reversal of policy, because they say that, look, it's in keeping with their expectation, with their demand. And also Deke, who succeeded Biodun Ogunyemi, has said as much. And so that's where we are. And so to the extent that this may contribute to industrial peace with the tertiary institutions, I think it's a welcome development. I think it's also a welcome development to the extent that even the colleges of education and the polytechnics, they welcome it. Although ASUP, that's the Union of Polytechnics, is asking the federal government to offer detailed explanations as to how it has taken the decision to depart from the Buhari policy. Because they are saying, in their own regard, that they don't want this to be some kind of subterfuge. And I think that's an appropriate, legitimate demand by ASUP leadership to say, look, explain it to us. What are the details? ASU, on its part, is saying that, yes, removing tertiary institutions from IPPIS does not necessarily solve the problem. There are other issues that have not been resolved. End academic allowance, one of the major demands. Payment of the 7.5 months or 8 months salary arrears. I know that President Tinubu had said the money should be paid, but we have it on record from ASU leadership that money has not been paid. So if that promise has been made, President Tinubu has an obligation to ensure that the money that was not paid under the no work, no pay rule that university teachers also objected to, that money is paid, because he had already made that commitment. Other commitments, other requests, other demands by the Academic Staff Union of Universities includes, provision of infrastructure, the revitalization of the university system, and then the outstanding objection to the idea of student loans, with this university teacher saying, look, student loans would put many students at a disadvantage because the conditions given as precedent to the award of the loans will exclude certain categories of students who may be denied the benefit of the right to education under Chapter 2 of the Constitution. To that extent, they are asking that it must be a grant, not a loan. The National Association of Nigerian Students are saying that, in fact, we should return to the old tradition of bursary. Although I recall that in those days when they used to give us bursary, students from the north used to get better money than students from the south. But at least all of us got something.
It depends on your state. It's your state that was not paying better money.
All of us got, no, it wasn't the federal government thing.
I know it was your state. It was your state, but it was a state that was not paying the good money, yeah.
Yes, but you will expect that, if we're going to return to the bursary of old, at least at that time, we used to complain that foreign students, Nigeria used to give grants to foreign students. They will get drunk. All the students from Lesotho, from South Africa, and the guys followed them and rejected Nigerian boys. We didn't like that. So I get a point about equity in this matter, so that going forward, the education sector should be guided by the principles of equity, balance, academic freedom. Pay attention to that. Don't go and give bursary to some people, and some people will be suffering.
All right, so the spirit of IPPIS in itself wasn't to punish civil servants, or in this case, university workers, lecturers, and other ad hoc staff. It was actually to make the process of the payment process more efficient. And like Dr. Bati had highlighted, to also track or to discourage ghost workers in the system. It was also meant to make it more efficient through transparency and accountability. However, the grouse of ASUU was that the process in itself was bureaucratic for the kind of system that the university environment or university system ran in terms of remuneration of their lecturers and their staff members. In their words, they said they would have to go to Abuja every time they needed to register onboard a new staff. They would have to go to Abuja if they had to rectify discrepancies in their pay and things like that. And so they offered an alternative. They weren't saying they were against the spirit or the idea behind the introduction of IPPIS. It was the fact that it didn't work for the university and higher tertiary education system in Nigeria. However, for the last 3 years, it had been back and forth, negotiations upon negotiations, industrial action on the part of ASUU to try to make the government understand their own, part of their reasoning. Finally, the Tinubu administration in under 1 year has come to an agreement, and that's why in the first instance I described this as triumphant for ASUU, because this is a battle they have faced, including that industrial strike that was mentioned that put a lot of, hampered the education of a number of university and tertiary education students in Nigeria. 8 months infamously in 2020. So this has addressed that. And again, like we mentioned, this has been sorted. Professor Sodeko, the current ASUU president, has mentioned that beyond that, there are a few key areas that the government must address in terms of responding to improving tertiary education in Nigeria. One of which, of course, they've talked about is the payment of arrears. Other things they've mentioned is the welfare of tertiary education. We also highlight the fact that only recently we talked about the mass migration of tertiary education lecturers to the famous or infamous word Jakpa, to other parts of the world where they seem to get better pay, seem to have better welfare, and are able to earn what they are worth. And so those are conversations that will possibly be ongoing beyond this move away from IPPIS and hopefully UTAS. However, the move must be commended. It must be seen that in terms of policy or policy formation or introduction of new initiatives, technology to address certain issues, all areas must be clearly considered. Also, perhaps a consultation with major stakeholders as to how effective, new introductions like this are. So again, brilliant move there, but beyond that, Professor Taha Maman, a lot of work is cut out for you. Perhaps revisiting the conversation like we've talked about on student loan. We have only a few weeks to go. Truth is that there's still questions as to whether the federal government will be able to meet the deadline it's set for itself in the implementation of the student loan. Will they have to revisit the term terms of the student loan or the provisions of the student loan? Will they have to change perhaps to a bursary system as has been advised by ASU? These are some of the other key issues to address. But again, great to see the Federal Executive Council meeting and the updates in the aviation sector. There had been talks about even fines proposed by the minister for late or cancellation of flights and other areas, and of course the amount of money approved for that sector.